mentioned, I said, yeah, I want to be on a program tomorrow. Dr. Haney. Dr. Haney? Yeah, I had him in my class. He said, yeah, he was a hard teacher. Yeah. but it was something that she said that you told me, she was a freshman, sophomore, about getting an insurance policy. And she said, I remember that. And she said she did it. She said, I never read it. Dr. Haney told us to do that.
All right. Well, let's see now. This is our, this is the, let's see. Mass communications and personal human development. Mass is that
the impact.
Impact of mass communication on personal
personality and human
development. Okay, yeah, that's I sort of got that down in.
Yeah, it seemed like your granddaughter touched on some of that too.
Impact of mass communications on personal and human development. Okay, very good. And you ready to deal with that?
I'm ready.
Okay, very good. This is the last show.
Now, I know your granddaughter's happy. I've been in for 5 shows.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the impact of mass communications on personal and human development. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the impact of mass communications on personal development, Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Sanford, let me welcome you to the show this morning. And I think our audience will know you because you've been with us on so many occasions. But just the same, there might be that one or two individuals who might not know you. And so let's take this opportunity to give you an opportunity to give us some information in reference to your background, your experiences, and some of the things that you found to be important in your life. And then we can get into the impact of mass communications on personal and human development.
And thank you again for having me. I am Dr. EKSanford. I'm a professor of sociology at Tennessee State University. And I knew you as you were a professor there, and I've been there now about 20 years. I did my postdoc degree at the Penn State University in with NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health Fellowship. And I was dealing with gerontology there, studying the aging process. And I taught there as well. And from there, I went to the University of Montana in Missoula, Montana, where I was Director of African American Studies. And I was there for about 6 years. A position came open then at that time to be the department chairperson at Austin Peay State University, where I went there and stayed for a few years and felt very fortunate to be able to have a position that I went to at Tennessee State University. I did my doctorate degree at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Very fortunate to be there, and I dealt with the homeless elderly on my dissertation topic while I was there, as well as worked with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, as well as a very important project while I was there with the D.C. Superior Court on mediation programs, and that was a very wonderful experience. I would also like to say, since we're dealing with mass communication today, I was also in radio program while I was there. I ran a talk show program overnight while I was in that area. But I want to move very briefly to say, while I was working on my master's degree in reference to what our topic is today, I had a course at University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill under Dr. Gerard Linsky. He was a two-time president of the American Sociological Association, and his entire research was related to human development, looking at phenomena from an earlier period to the present, which I'm hoping to touch on today.
Very good. And of course, what we have to do here is that we'll take our first commercial break in a couple of minutes, and then we'll be able to get into mass communications. But what really would you say in reference to mass communications and personal development, what really inspired you to want to talk about something like that?
Well, you know, it's horrific that coincidental that things happen in our world today that we're so impacted by mass media, technology, telecommunication, that individuals that are in cyberspace, on Facebook, or how they're getting there and receiving their information is impacting their thinking processes. And as a result of that, they might come to some conclusion to act out in a certain way based on the impact of some type of form of technology. So I had that interest as you contacted me about a topic today, that given the horrific issue that happened in Orlando, and I know we may be dated, but one of the worst problems of mass killings that has happened in the United States of America, and then what is influencing people to go out and to act in those types of ways. So I thought in terms of understanding how is mass communication can be very positive within our postmodernist society in which we're living in today, but there are also a lot of negative types of problems that goes along with the development of mass communication, telecommunication, computer, being able to have information so rapid that's flowing in our society today.
And so in other words, what we're saying here is that Facebook and Twitter and all of these sites, websites have quite a bit to do with our own personal human development.
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And how we can, even more than that, be influenced by it. How we might come up within the structure of a family that is very positive. We may come up within a structure of religion that is very positive. But the influence of the institution of mass communication can influence those two other institutions to the point that a person may make a decision to do something that is deviant or incorrect.
Even though his upbringing might have been somewhat different, but since he became involved in that kind of activity, the results might be different than anticipated. Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely, that's exactly what we're saying.
And so what we'll do, we'll have our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
Yeah. I was cleaning out the yard and got a little poison ivy on my arm.
Oh, man.
And you know how that impacted. Just in a small area, pulsed up and did the whole thing. And you know, coming back from out of town, we just had these home remedies, and it was working.
Oh, yeah?
About 4 or 5 days, it was itching. I didn't itch it in there. I knew that was wrong thing. But then as it, fourth day went by, I just went up to the pharmacy and asked the lady. She said, oh, you know, it looked bad, but it looked worse at the beginning than it did at that point. I thought it was getting better. So she put me on some antibiotics and steroids. And I'm on, today and tomorrow is my last day of the steroid. But I was telling this gentleman here how being on the steroids had another impact on my hip.
It did?
It is, just working with that made me feel like I can make a comeback. I've been feeling good, but I hate to stay on medicine though. They want me to replace it, but I don't want to do that right now.
Steroids, would you take them as a pill? Or
you just have to take them as a pill. You can take it in different ways. They gave it to me as a pill. I started off taking 6 for 4 days and went down to 5, 4, 3, 2. Now I'm on 1.
Now what does it do for you?
Well, it does a lot of things. This was just to heal that swelling. It was helping to boost your whatever in your system to help things to heal, but it also takes away inflammation.
Okay,
it does a lot of things. That's what I was wondering. What in the world is it doing? There are multiple things.
Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University, and the topic is the impact of mass communications on personal and human development. Now, Doctor, let's see if we can pick up during this second segment on some of the ideas dealing with the impact of mass communications on social and, on political and personal and human development. I'll get it right. Yeah, go on. Let's see.
Yes, what I would like to be able to try to contextualize it is to say that we live in a society that is basically made up of 10 basic institutions, and on this show I mentioned them before. So the 10th one, as we have moved from pre-industrial to post-industrial to a postmodernist age into this highly telecommunication society right now. So things are just different even in our lifetime. And as a result of that, there's been some impact on all of us that have experienced that development from one period to the next period. And as a result of that development, how has that impacted us and our personalities? How has it impacted our needs? How do we feel if we don't have our cell phones with us?
All right.
How do you feel when you're on Facebook or on Twitter, as you mentioned earlier?
If you can't get on that all the time. And
that's right. Yeah, you feel. If you get a sense that, oh, where's my cell phone, you feel lost. Or you might make a decision to go back home and get it versus being on time for wherever you have to go. So how has just mass communication, development of telecommunication impacted our personalities? Another little behavioral difference, if you think about how laws have had to change, an institution of the law. Prior to cell phones, there was no such thing as texting. Now that we are doing that, how has mass communication made a person feel that is driving in a car, that feels a buzz, that they need to respond to it? And when they're responding to it, then we've had a number of deaths based on people driving and texting. So now laws are coming, making it illegal not to text and drive, or warning signs posted not to text and drive. So I'm saying that just to say some little elementary behavioral change just because of the development of mass communication, telecommunication. So when we look at other impacts, say from a child's point of view, to what degree will families be very much involved in child development from the sensory motor stage, from birth to age 2, just in human interaction versus telecommunication? What would be the impact of a group that is spending time reading with all of the senses of the child and helping them to develop, to grow, to develop, to go into kindergarten, versus where we're living in a telecommunication society? They are very much involved with them, but they are letting them watch videos.
They hand them the telephone, video,
and they are playing with it. And they're getting that type of stimulation versus a human interaction as we would have had when we were growing up. Now, we can look at this when we mentioned in the topic, the development of human societies. If we go to another country, as our President of the United States visited Cuba very recently, you will see people over there walking around, socially interacting, and since they do not have the telecommunication system that we have here in this highly industrialized, competitive environment and market that we live here in America, you see much more human interaction. You probably will not find some of the same symptoms that we will have because they don't have that. So those are some of the positive things about not having access to it, while indeed we have it, and there are a lot of negative things that come from it.
It creates a lot of problems because of our ability to deal with some of these things.
Absolutely. From the classroom to human development and also societies. So I'm looking at this issue that we have when we look at some of the issues and concerns and problems that we have in society. Of course, telecommunication is here to stay. It is fastly growing. You know, when you learn one thing is already outdated and the new one is already out. They're developing right now something new. But what is the impact of that on personality development, our need, being at the table for dinner with a family? Will everyone have the phones out? Or do they miss the whole communication and interaction between each other? How has that impacted us? Now, when we've had earlier shows and talked about deviant behavior, how has something like that taken a person that's by themselves and they are following some other type of a deviant type of communication on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or whatever they are doing, and they are being influenced by that? They are changing their patterns of behaviors to do deviant things that will not follow the rules and regulations of the law, and they will go out and act on it. So this is impacting us in a certain way. So while there are some positive things about it, of course, it's here to stay, and it's going to even develop to a higher degree, and we don't even know where it's going. So there are some positive things about it. But we also have to be very concerned about some of the negative things about it as well.
You know, I was thinking, Dr. Sanford, that in view of what happened in Orlando recently, would you say that the mass communications, our ability to communicate and et cetera, had something to do with this one way or the other? And if so, from a sociological point of view, how would you evaluate that?
Absolutely, because we do live in a nation of laws, and our institutions are supposed to guide our behaviors. There are certain rules and regulations and laws. However, given mass communication, telecommunication, how can a person then go online, place in an order for something? There are certain minimal balances of checks and balances, and then that person can then receive whatever they have ordered very rapidly. So if you look at this particular circumstance, with anything that someone wants, they can go out there and they can get some feedback on it very quickly. And then they can go and act on it, because we have advanced and everything has become so quick and rapid. So it has indeed had a negative impact on our society with criminal behavior.
And so many people are buying into social media and whatever. As a matter of fact, it's almost unusual for a person not to be involved in social media one way or the other. Is that what
Absolutely, it is. And we're all involved. I think the question becomes, to what degree are we involved? We're already at a high level, and then others are at an even higher level. So when we look at this incident of the Orlando, or any other setting that comes up where people are involved in deviant behavior, even in other countries, many instances, they are not talking to the person directly and being influenced by them by being a part of that group. They are just through cyberspace communicating with them, watching it on the Facebook